We were expecting an auction today where the former home that belonged to the actress Terry Pheto was going to be auctioned because the claim was she had bought it or had received the home with money stolen from the National Lottery Commission. You may remember the former board of the Commission is being investigated after millions of rand was used to buy homes for members of the Commission. Other money was given to musicians and celebrities instead of to charities. Pheto was forced to give up the house. There were some reporting that she'd done a deal to give up information about what actually happened. Kaizer Kganyago is the spokesperson for the Special Investigating Unit. They've been investigating all of this. Kaizer, good afternoon to you. What actually happened then with this house today?
Good afternoon to your viewers. The auction happened and there were no takers.
No one bought the house?
No one bought the house, and now the house is still in the bucket. Obviously, the auctioneers will decide taking forward on how to deal with this matter. And some of them were saying maybe it's because of you guys. There was too much media hype around it. Nobody wanted to buy.
Well, look, Bryanston's generally gets good property values in Joburg, but could the house have been too expensive? I mean, property values have changed since the pandemic.
I don't think it's about price, because obviously at least somebody would have put an offer, whatever price that might have been. But that is the terrain that I'm not familiar with. Therefore, all I can say is the house was not bought.
And so who has custody over it? Because you or the AFE would have had custody over it. So what happens now? Someone who makes a decision?
Yeah, because now the house will still remain in curatorship. The curator will look after it. And then obviously, and then we will then look at what the next steps are going to be. All that we want from it is to get that, the house sold and get that money so that it can go back to the National Lottery Commission. So
the money, as I understand it, was the money that bought the house came from the National Lotteries Commission. Did it go through, I mean, did Terry Pheto buy the house herself? Was the money given directly to her, or was the house bought for her?
Yes, the money went to an NPO, and this NPO had applied to do work for charity, and then they applied for about 20 million rand. And then 16 million was paid to them. Out of that 16 million, 3 million of it went into the lawyer's account, and these lawyers are the ones who then purchased the house and registered it in the name of Terry Pheto.
We saw this happen so many times, didn't we, during this time, when that board of the National Lotteries Commission was in charge? This was exactly their playbook.
No, the modus operandi is the same, and we are able to follow the money and see where it ended up, and we are able to then come to you and say, give us proof that it did not happen this way. Because obviously, if you had bought the house, you'd have the bond papers and all of that. And if you can't give it to us, it means our theory, as the basis on the basis of the evidence we have, is correct.
If someone bought me a house and it turned out that the money had been stolen, I would presume that you would come and knocking on my door. You would ask me to account for it. There may even be criminal charges. Possessing stolen goods is an offence. It can get a bit complicated. What's going to happen with Terry Pheto?
Now, at the moment, the investigations are still going on because there are further other things that we are looking into. And once we are ready, we will then determine at that point whether there is a need for any criminal charges to be put, because the law says we must then send that through the NPA. But at the moment, investigations are happening and there's nothing criminal or otherwise that we are putting against her. The only thing is we want that money from the proceeds of that money to come back to us so that we can give it back to lottery and it goes back to the poor people that it was supposed to go back to.
She wasn't the only famous person involved in this. So other actors, let me use that word, I hate that word, celebrities, but let me use that word, that seem to be caught up in this. I mean, there are other people you're speaking to as well.
No, definitely there are many other people that we find, but I always preface this by saying we don't investigate people.
Sure.
Because sometimes people think that we go after them because they are so-called...
You follow the money.
We follow the money and it brings us to you. And that's the unfortunate part. Even in other people that we've dealt with before, we were following an NPO that received money and the money ended up buying certain properties. And that's how we get to those properties and we freeze them.
Are the people involved, Terry Pheto and the others, are they cooperating?
And fortunately for us, they have got no choice. They are cooperating with us because we need to get to the bottom of it. And we need to understand what really went wrong. Because it is not only about getting the money back. We then have to go back to lottery. We went back to lottery the other day. And we said to them, this is where the faults are in your system. Because when we investigate, we need to also have systemic recommendations back to the institution to say, close the things here and do this and do that. And that's what we said. We've already said with the board of the National Lottery Commission. We've also met the new commissioner, And we are able to say, these are the shortfalls, close this, and let us make sure that this doesn't happen in future.
So, I mean, we can change the structure all we like, but it's a classic, it's almost like state capture, what happened at the National Lottery. I mean, I should say allegedly, but there's so much evidence. I don't know if I need to say it. Let me say it, allegedly. So the point is that you can have all the structures you want. If you've got people working together in charge of money, it's very difficult to stop that money from being stolen. And if you go through what happened, you go through the reporting, and the reporting, I must say, and give credit to Ground Up for this, I mean, it seemed there was quite a group of people who were working together, and they got away with it for a long time.
No, definitely they did, but also it is because the systems were there, but they were not monitoring afterwards. Because in most of these instances, you'll find that they've done everything according to the book, in as far as the approval process is concerned. But they go the other side and manipulate the distribution. And that is the side where I think the National Lottery has to monitor, because if you give somebody money to build a house for disabled people, for example, go and check whether this house has been built. Don't come and say the money has been paid and then you don't know whether the house is built or not. Therefore, those are some of the small things that you can do. At least it will reduce the number of activities, because in some instances, people do it because other people are doing it.
Yeah. And if someone comes along and gives you a 3 million rand house, you should ask where the money came from.
Yeah, no, there are other moral issues that are involved here, and I think it's an indication to our children to say there's no easy money that can be obtained. You need to understand that we work for everything that we do.
Kaizer Kganyago, thank you very much indeed. Do appreciate the time. He works for everything he does as the spokesperson for the Special Investigating Unit. More to come on organised crime in a moment.